You are watching the Weekend Sports Kickoff right here on KNWT Channel 8. And we are back on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. I'm Devin Albertson, joined by Ryan Elliott, Trevor Mater, and Jacob Blair. I got everybody's names right this week, so there's a plus so far in this show. One thing that's not a plus right now in some Chiefs fans' eyes, including mine, Marcus Peters traded to Los Angeles, almost said St. Louis, to the Rams, as we're still not sure exactly what the Chiefs have gotten back, but right now it's a package of picks that includes most likely their first-round pick this year. So the Chiefs, we have a first-round pick this year most likely, but I'm just going to open it up to the floor real quick. We'll go to you first, Trevor, on this one.
I can't say it's good or bad until I actually see what they've got. If they get a first and a third out of this, then I'll say it was a good trade. If it's like the Rams do not have a second-round pick. They gave that up for Sammy Watkins. If it's like a third and a fifth, then I'll go, okay, they just traded the best corner in the league for a third and fifth round pick. I don't know. I've always felt like Brett Veach has a plan. I feel like he understands it. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt on this. And there's probably some stuff that happened, guys, that we don't know about with Marcus Peters. I mean, the guy, let's be real, the guy has a history of having kind of a temper and kind of not having his head in the right spot. Was there something that went on there? Is that what happened? You know, I've also heard rumors that he requested a trade. If Marcus Peters is the type of guy that if he doesn't want to be there, what would it do to benefit the Chiefs if they keep him there, knowing the personality he is? So I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm just kind of meh with it right now.
How about you, Jacob?
I'm at the same place Trevor is. I really can't make a decision on this until we know exactly what was given back to the Chiefs for him. It's still, although a little bit of a struggle for me to lean towards the good side when you get rid of a corner. But the first thing I thought when I saw this trade was there was something behind the scenes that we have not seen that led to this. Because we know we've seen some stuff that's happened on the field, some of his antics, but I'm someone that I'm okay with that if you're as good as he is. I can deal with a 15-yard penalty once every 4 games because you're making plays that make up for it. But if stuff's going on inside the locker room, or like Trevor said, he wanted out of there, and like he said, if he wants out of there, he's not going to try and practice. He's not going to make the team better. He's going to do some things that are detrimental to the Chiefs. So if there's behind-the-scene things that happen and those come out later, it'll be a good trade, but you still got to wait to see what happens and what we got back.
The one thing that Trevor mentioned with he asked for a trade, there was a source came from a guy at the Arrowhead Pride did the
Seth
blog
Kaiser.
thing. Yeah, and he got a reply from somebody who said he asked for a trade as soon as the Titans game was over. So that's where that's coming from. So we're kind of going full circle. What about you, Ryan? What did you think about this trade with Marcus Peters going to L.A.?
I've done a lot of thinking about it since the news came out about an hour ago, or about 2 hours ago, I guess. Marcus Peters is not a Kansas City guy.
No.
Marcus Peters is a California guy. Marcus Peters is an Oakland guy. So LA's a lot closer to home. He's going to be a lot more comfortable on the West Coast. It's more familiar to him. He's just as good of a player as he was, and as the guys seemed to like him. Everybody on the sideline seemed to like him. As far as a teammate goes, he probably wasn't the best teammate in the world. He did warrant quite a few penalties, but a lot of guys don't care about that as long as you're passionate about what you do, and Marcus Peters was that. But he wasn't a Kansas City guy. Marcus Peters, I said for a long time, I don't care if Marcus Peters makes another tackle for the rest of his career. His job is to go out and get turnovers, and he was one of the best in the league at doing that. So it's certainly an impact of your defense that you're going to have to come up with, but also, let's be honest, with the 2 corners that they have gotten with Kendall Fuller and David Amerson, that's a solid defensive backfield, and that wasn't the biggest problem with the Chiefs defense.
No. Kind of piggybacking off what you said, Ryan, how he wasn't a good fit for Kansas City. I don't know if he was a good fit for Andy Reid either, and the culture, because Andy Reid's been able to deal with pains in the neck. We've seen that, how he handled Michael Vick. But he kind of reminds me a lot personality-wise of Terrell Owens. I mean, which is totally different than handling a guy like Tyreek Hill who comes in with baggage, or even Travis Kelce.
Well, and you talk about a guy like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill comes in with baggage, but Tyreek Hill on game day is business. Yeah. This is, we're going out, we're playing a football game, and we're going to win a football game. Marcus Peters is a lot more flash. He's a lot more emotional. Yeah. He's a lot more, he plays with a lot of emotion. Honestly, he plays fairly immature. And where there is a place for that, it just may not be in the Kansas City Chiefs organization.
And I don't agree with trading Marcus Peters, first of all, because I don't believe that all pro corners grow on trees. And I do like the Fuller get from Washington, the Alex Smith trade. I think the guy from Oakland, Emerson, he's a decent corner. But honestly, if they would have had those two with Marcus Peters, you have one of the best secondaries in the league. Now you have an average secondary. So I think it takes away from your team completely when you take out Marcus Peters, because he has forced 24 turnovers in 3 years in Kansas City. That's the most in the first 3 years of a career, behind one person ever, and that's Ed Reed, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think Marcus Peters is on his way to have a Hall of Fame type career, and I just don't agree with trading someone like that away from your defense when he can cover up mistakes from other guys in the secondary so much. And just, I hear Trez Pillard's already tweeted out he's heard some rumblings that current Chiefs are upset about this Marcus Peters trades. And the conversation will be interesting. The conversation part is the part that has me a little bit wavering between going full out and just ripping the Chiefs for trading one of your top 3 defensive players, but at the same point, like, hey, as Trevor said, they get a first and a third, or a first and a future second, or something like that. Then it's like, you know what? All right, they're going to try to. I don't agree with rebuilding right now because I think they have the roster to win right now. But if the Chiefs want to take that direction, then take it, I guess, and just see if you can work something there. And apparently, according to the Chiefs thing, you want to do a couple things. You have 1 or 2 years left on his deal, depending if the team picks up his 5th-year option. They have to do that before May 3rd. 3 things need to be in place. It's got to be on the West Coast near Oakland, which you got with L.A. He's got to have an alpha coach and an alpha defensive coordinator. The Rams have all 3. So it's probably a good fit for Marcus Peters just because you're playing under Wade Phillips, and he can control him more than most can.
And what I look at with Marcus Peters is, yes, he was fantastic at forcing turnovers. He at best in the league at that, without a doubt. He was not the best cornerback in the NFL. I'm sorry.
Top 5.
He is not locking anybody down.
No.
He's a top 5
He's
corner.
not locking anybody down.
There were a lot
He's
of
giving
plays.
up big plays. He's giving up catches. He is not a lockdown corner. He's a turnover forcing corner, which is huge. That will give you. But I've even been guilty of focusing too much on the turnover game, of giving him too much credit for forcing turnovers, because honestly, from a coverage standpoint, Marcus Peters isn't top 10. Ooh. Marcus Peters is not one of the top coverage corners in the game. He just isn't.
You look at
turnovers are huge in the NFL.
There were a lot of times he got burned.
Oh, he got torched.
And part of that is the home run mentality. I mean, that's just part of it.
Well, some of the idea that he's a really good coverage cornerback is the fact that if you've got Marcus Peters on one side and then whatever the Chiefs put on the other side of the field, where are you going to throw the football? You're going to throw it to the other side of the field. So Marcus Peters wasn't getting thrown at, so that kind of might help that idea that some people have that he was a really good coverage corner. But I'm with you. He's really good at picking times to go for the home run play, gets it, and then there's sometimes if you're going to do that, you're going to get burned.
And Marcus Peters will hand you a 10-yard curl. He will hand you a 10-yard curl, literally. Like, he will turn around and say, throw the ball right here. I'm giving him 15 yards of cushion.
How much of that is Bob Sutton's scheme, though, and not just Marcus Peters?
Well, the fact of the matter is that great corners can make up for that. Marcus Peters couldn't do it. Marcus Peters would get burned on a game-by-game basis. The great corners in the league, yes, they went for it. Yes, they went for home runs, but you know what? Deion Sanders wasn't getting burned every game.
Even Richard Sherman wasn't getting...
No, they weren't getting burned every game. Marcus Peters was getting burned at least once, because he didn't know when to stop going for it. Now, that's a great mentality to have. It provides a lot of fire for a defense, but it doesn't do what the Chiefs' defense needs. Because if you can't defend a run game, you also can't have a corner that gives up big plays. Because that's all that they're going to take.
So I'm looking some up right now. Okay, right here it says quarterbacks do not perform well when targeting Peters. Quarterback rating of 66 when targeting Peters last year. From a quarterback's perspective, that's ranked 67th in the league this year, worse than Paxton Lynch. and worse than Mike Glennon. So right now, when quarterbacks throw at Marcus Peters, they're having the Paxton Lynch type effectiveness. That's not good. That's why he's an elite corner. Like, he's one of the top 5 corners, in my opinion, in the NFL. I know he gives up some plays, but his upside on the other side completely negates the other part of it because he doesn't give up enough plays on the other side to overmatch the value that he turns with turnovers, because turnovers in the NFL are the difference in most games. I mean, if you win the turnover battle in the NFL, you're going to win the game, 60, 70% of the time. So that's why he's so important to a defense.
Chiefs won the turnover battle of the playoff game, didn't they?
Which why I say it's not every time, but it's most of the time. And also they had a couple turnovers that got called back as well for progress.
They still won the turnover battle.
I'm just saying, like,
the bottom line is for
you don't use the exception to disprove the rule.
No,
though.
You're right. But the bottom line is the Chiefs had a line basically drawn in the sand of this is how much we're going to tolerate for a player with this talent.
Well, and the fact of the matter is they drew that line, and Marcus Peters, while he was really good, and he may have, even if he was a top 5 corner in the league, he's not good enough to cross that line.
Yeah.
He's just not good enough to cross that line.
At what point do you say, okay, this guy's a great talent, but he is a pain, and his pain and his headaches no longer justify his ability?
Because if the only guys you let cross that line are for sure guys that are going to Canton, are guys that are the guy on a team. Marcus Peters isn't the guy.
Tom Brady, I'm sure Tom Brady at this point could do whatever he wants, and people will be okay with it. Bill Belichick might not be, because that's how he is.
Right.
But Marcus Peters is not that guy.
He has what 2 things this past year. There was the suspension after the Jets game for throwing the flag in the stands where he wasn't kicked out of the game. That was just a dumb move. And then the other thing was he got in an argument with a coach.
Well, that's what happened on the field in front of the cameras. Who knows what happened in that locker room? Nobody.
Does anyone remember the post-game press conference after the Redskins game where they made the mistake of letting him speak to the press, and within a minute of him speaking to the press, they realized that
And how many times did Justin Houston stop him from doing that? Because Justin Houston was the holding me back guy. Justin Houston was the guy that kept Peters from going nuts and throwing stuff at the officials.
Which a lot of these stuff is a lot of just corner mentality in the first place. You see Josh Norman or you see Richard Sherman doing very similar things, but people still view them as.
I think Richard Sherman. I think it's. I wouldn't say Richard Sherman's a lot different than Marcus Peters, where Sherman's a lot more intellectual.
I don't know. People rave about Peters' football IQ. Maybe not his IQ off the field, but his football IQ is off the charts.
But Richard Sherman also knows that he's not going to pick up a flag and throw it 15 rows.
That's the emotional part of
Richard
Peters.
Sherman's not going to do something that puts his team in a bad situation. I don't know that I've seen Josh Norman do that a lot. I mean, the Odell Beckham situation.
The fight with Odell Beckham on the field, that would then put the team in a bad situation.
It ended up putting the Giants in a worse situation than it did Norman.
I just feel like most of the stuff that people don't like Peters for, whether it's his on the field stuff or even the stuff with the national anthem, which I personally don't care about. I don't care about.
No, that doesn't matter.
I don't care. But I think that cares to some of the fan base in Kansas City, and it put pressure on the organization some of that way, which I don't believe should have in any case, but I think it did a little bit. And it's just like some of these things are just like some of these are just normal like defensive back mentality stuff that people just can't get over because they want all the defensive back to act quarterbackial, and it's just not the position type. I mean, corners have to live on an island. They have to live on that edge. He sometimes tips over the edge, but still think he was worth having on the roster. And I just don't believe that trading away your best coverage corner and one of your 3 best defensive players makes you better defensively when you're already not good last year defensively.
Here's what I'm seeing, though, is if you can get a first-round pick, because that's the other side of it is we don't know what they've gotten yet.
Yeah, that's one thing.
If you can get a first round pick and you've got 2 corners that are going to show up every day and they're going to work. They're going to go out and they're going to play ball. They're going to mean business, and you get a guy from that draft pick that can play a solid interior defense, whether it's an inside linebacker or a guy that can rush the passer. If you can use that first-round pick and get a guy, I would much rather have that than Marcus Peters. I guarantee, for an organization standpoint, you want guys that are going to go out and put everything on the line for the team. And Marcus Peters just doesn't seem like that guy.
I don't understand this argument at all that he doesn't put it all on the line. In the playoff game versus Tennessee, he was the guy on the last drive coming up and smacking Derrick Henry and almost forcing a fumble to win the game for Kansas City. He was the guy doing that late in the game, blitzing up off the edge and making a big play. He was the guy in the playoff game getting interception off of Marcus Mariota. He was the guy making plays in the playoff game. It didn't turn out well in the end, but it tells me that he didn't want to win.
But it's also about up here.
Yeah, plays doesn't mean mentality. mentality. You know who else made plays? Terrell Owens.
Terrell
You
Owens made a
can't
lot
tell
of
me
plays.
Terrell Owens wasn't putting it out. Was putting it out all out there at all times. Terrell Owens at
Owens, some
times
of the playoffs
was an
was-
idiot.
Yes.
Marcus Peters at times is an idiot.
Look at the Jets game. You know, they're down. The Jets just scored the go-ahead touchdown on the 2-point conversion. He didn't like the call, which was an obvious holding call, and throws a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old. And I don't think that ends up necessarily costing the Chiefs a game, but it made it a lot hard. He put himself in a bad situation.
I'd much rather have a guy that maybe isn't going to pick off as many balls or force as many fumbles, but he's going to go out there. He's going to make it hard on every receiver. He's going to make the receivers work, and he's going to go out there and work his butt off every game, which both David Amerson and Kendall Fuller are going to do.
Yeah, it's time for us to take a break now because we got to get our buddy Isaiah Swan on the show as he's going to come on and talk some Bear Camp basketball with us, and then we'll get back to college basketball for Division I after that. But we're going to take a quick break and be back with Isaiah Swan for Northwest Basketball here on X106.
Yep.
And we are back on the weekend sports kickoff. Devin, Ryan, Trevor, and now we're joined by Northwest Missourian sports editor Isaiah Swan. And Isaiah, how you doing this fine Friday afternoon?
Doing great. I only have one class on Friday, so anytime you can pencil that in into your senior schedule, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely. As Northwest got the win last night at Lindenwood, clinching their 5th straight MIAA title. Just kind of your thoughts on their run of success over the past half decade.
Half decade.
Half decade.
Oh, man. Big question. I think it has a lot to do with McCollum. I think, obviously, he's been at the center of a lot of things, and I think that – yeah, you don't want to be cliche, but it's definitely the culture that he's put into the team. I think that they've gotten leaders throughout the past 5 years, one of them being Justin Pitts, but I remember when Crooker was a leader and Zach Schneider again was a leader. And they just bring in guys that know what they're doing and they know how to lead men. And I think that's something you don't find. You can find it, but it's not easily seen, and it's hard to pick out in a group of high schoolers whenever you're going through the process. And I think that McCollum's done a tremendous job of doing that.
And, of course, they go play at Lincoln on Saturday, chance to clinch their 4th straight outright MIAA title. They shared the one 5 years ago with Central Missouri. They've won every one since outright. And with a win Saturday, then they go to the MIAA tournament, try to clinch this 1 seed in the region. We think Northwest's chances are to win the MIAA tournament next week and have a decent chance of clinching the number 1 seed in the region.
I think that it's about as same as it is almost every year. Because, we have to remember this is a tournament. And so you listen to Ben McCollum in his interviews after the game. He loves winning the regular season title 10 times more than he could possibly win the tournament title. Like, for him, it's a big deal. Every win is a big deal. Don't hear me undermine each win. But when you look at what he wants them to be consistent for a season. Now, for 3 games, we saw it last year. They were 1 shot away from being knocked out in the semifinals of the tournament. So, it's really – it depends on their matchups. It depends who they play. I think they are still the best team. I think we all think that. I don't think anyone could argue. But the problem is how they've been playing, and it's hard whenever 2 of your best players are hurt.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask was how much credit do you give some of the offensive struggles, especially to the injuries of Justin Pitts, Xavier Kurth for a while, and now Chris Endow?
It messes with you. You look at last year that they didn't have to deal with that. And whenever you've got to put different guys in and some guys are playing unfamiliar minutes, you look at a lot of these guys, they're not playing really heavy minutes. And Meyer's the assistant coach, he does a tremendous job of really cycling guys in and out, playing short spurts, playing what they need to do, playing to their strengths. And I think that's done a lot. But what I wanted to address, Ryan, and I talked a little bit before I come in here, is Justin Pitt's numbers are way down. Mm-hmm. We look at his season totals the last 2 years. He ended up at 693 points and 754 his sophomore and junior year. He's at 465 right now, and so that's 200 some points below what he's usually at. You look at his rebounding, in almost at 100 his junior year, at 113 his junior year, and then he's at 57 right now. He's way down on a lot of his stats. And now you have to consider he's been out a couple games. So you take away a pretty good chunk right there with that. You also have to consider, okay, Joey Wittis is playing right now, and he's integrated into the system, and so that's another shooter that's taking statistics away. And so it's like, Isaiah, are you basing it off stats? I think a large part of it is stats, but I just don't know. I think that you do look at it and you're like, wow, these numbers are half of what they were last year and his sophomore year as well.
Right. I'm going to address a couple of things in that. One is the rebounding number. I don't want to give that too much credit just because he is 5'9", 5'10". I guess he's listed at 5'10".
They list him at 5'10".
But
no way he's 5'10".
But to your other point, absolutely statistically, this hasn't been a Justin Pitts-like year. That is for certain, and part of that is because he's missed games. Part of that is because the way the offense has worked this year. But to me, what makes Justin Pitts, what makes him the best player in the country in D2 is his ability to shut down an entire basketball game if he wants to. His ability to take over. And I think even though his numbers haven't been up there, he's still shown that ability this year. He showed it in the 9 3-point performance in the first half against was it Kearney?
Northeastern,
there it was. Against Northeastern at home. He showed that a couple of times this season. I think that is what sets him apart from a lot of people in Division II and not necessarily the overall numbers.
And so what I'm nervous about is, yes, he did have that big game against Northeastern. But, guys, it's Northeastern also, and you know it very well. And no, not trying to tear down Northeastern, but
they're tied for the 12th spot in the region, in the conference.
Thank you. And so what I've just missed is him taking it up a level in the big moments this game, because I think he's done it a couple times. I'm not saying he hasn't been good at all, and I'm not saying he's been bad. What I'm saying, he's been good. And I think we all agree that Justin Pitts is great. And so I think he's been good, and then probably better than good, because he has made a lot of plays this season. I think he has put Northwest in the position they are in today. But if they want to win another national title, he has to be great, correct? So
I think so.
That's true.
I think this team is fine just because if you play the type of defense Northwest plays, you're going to be in a lot of games, even teams that are really talented. So that will be able to give you a fighter's chance even late in the game, even if you're not shooting well. That defense, like we saw versus Washburn, can lock teams down and give you enough to at least be in the game and have Justin Pitts make a play down the stretch. So.
And if you are in the game late and you have a guy like Justin Pitts on your side of the floor, the other team's got to be terrified. Absolutely
And
terrified.
what's terrifying is they don't just have Pitts now, and it's not just Indow.
Doherty's made huge
Doherty's
leaps.
An incredible weapon.
Now it's scary for the other team, because you're like, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's.
So we're going to thank Isaiah for coming on today, as we got to talk some Bearcat basketball with him. And we're going to leave this segment with a tweet from last night from NWB Ball, Northwest Missouri State Bearcat basketball Twitter account, as they celebrated last night's win versus Lindenwood and their 5th straight MIAA title. So we're going to go out in this and be back after the break with our college basketball picks for Division I.
Good win. Well, obviously, we want to win next time, but how many? That's championship-wise, not one.
No.
Two.
No dos.
Two.
No trace.
It's not three.
It's not three.
We passed three.
We passed four.
It ain't even four.
It's not quattro.
Wait a minute. It's five.
Watch the angle. Oh, I thought it was shit. You got no shoes on. Chris got silly. I was like, yeah.
As you can tell, we were pretty upset about the Chiefs trading Marcus Peters, and I'd say that earns us the show of the week, Shane. For other great shows, make sure you click right here. And then to watch other episodes of the Weekend Sports Kickoff, the best show on KNWT, you can watch down here. We will see you next Friday as we preview the MIAA tournament.